networker is like a great interviewer.
I'm huge on authenticity, guys. It's a big part of my message.
Claim your local listings and don't get caught paying someone for your local listing.
If you want to be successful, you got to do 6 things 1,000 times, not 1,000 things 6 times.
And when in doubt, give to other people and don't expect anything in return. But in giving to other people and helping them, it almost always comes back.
It's using the power of partnership, creating trusted partner networks to work with you to make your company be an offer more than just you.
They've done 90% of the work. It's your job to do the last 10% to meet them in the middle.
Don't let the fear of losing be greater than the excitement of winning. Welcome to this episode of the Ask Valor Masterminds podcast, brought to you by A Advanced Services and Fuse Networks. My name's Galen.
Good morning, I'm Joe.
We're coming at you from the BD Local Studios in Tacoma, Washington. So, Joe, before we introduce our guest and get started, how did we start this whole podcast?
Sure. So it first started out as a Facebook group page where the purpose was to bring businesses together to talk to each other, communicate, ask questions, kind of help one another out. Mm-hmm. From that, being that we're in marketing and we have a lot of questions from our clients that maybe we can't answer. So selfishly, we created this podcast to bring on different guest speakers to talk about different topics related to business, not only for our selfishness, but then also just to push content out to the small business community.
Right. Thank you for that. So our previous guest was Mr. John Wetmore. So what was one of your takeaways when we had John on for that energetic episode?
So he is in the life insurance business. And last year, I think his team sold $150 million in policies. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that he talked about was, one, just jumping into it, whatever you're doing, 100%, giving it 100%. And then the second one was going back to a sales mindset of thinking of your dialing for appointments as you're making money. So you can break down how many dials you make to get an appointment and how many appointment it takes to close and like what the dollar amount you close is. And then for every phone call, every phone call I made, I'm making $17.
And for the salespeople out there, there's a lot that listen to this, and we come from a sales background. It's almost the underlying theme was taking the emotion out of sales.
Correct.
So you could lose a sale, be bummed, like, oh, I had a big sale, I was going to make this much, but don't think of it that way. Think of it as every call, every appointment gets me to this, and then you break it down numerically from a non-emotional standpoint.
Yeah.
All right. So today, we are happy to have an in-studio guest. So, Joe, please introduce our lovely guest today.
Sure. Nichole, pronounce your last name.
Frandanisa.
Thank you. Host and founder of Jesus Take the Deal podcast, real estate agent, and keynote speaker, Nichole is an award-winning realtor, business owner, and culture expert. With a background in nonprofit and for-profit leadership, her career expands over several industries, including real estate, entertainment, and health and wellness. She quickly became a top-producing real estate agent and leads efforts around creating and maintaining a culture that matters. She is passionate about helping others learn the art of joy, culture, and leadership strategies they need to succeed no matter what this marketplace does.
All right, everyone, welcome Nichole.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. That was so kind. You would have thought I wrote that.
Awesome. All right. So now let's get to know you a little bit better. We asked our guests the same 3 questions. So the first question is, what are some early lessons learned as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I had to take notes because it's been a little while since, 2 things. Since I considered myself an entrepreneur, that's a new phase of life for me. I've often worked with other people. So I took some notes. A couple that really stand out to me. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, then take people with you. That one, in short, simply means that you can get a lot done by yourself with your head down. But at the end of the day, leadership's lonely. And you're going to get a lot farther and accomplish a lot more and impact a lot more people if you build a team around you to do it with you. The last one is that how important it is to set your family values and make decisions based on your family values first, and then your business.
Awesome.
So with that, then, what has been the best piece of advice that you've been given?
Yes, absolutely. When I think about the advice that I've been given, I've been so lucky to have phenomenal leaders in kind of every aspect of my life. A few that stand out is that people will definitely forget what you know, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. So remembering that we only get one shot at an impression, everything can be fixed or fudged except the experience we offer the person across the table to us. So that's the big one. And then the last one, which is my favorite, is hire the smile. Once somebody told me that, hire the smile, that all aspects of a job can really be taught to most folks. They will or will not have the skills.
Right.
But what's more difficult to train is to teach somebody how to be positive in any working environment, and that positivity is what impacts culture.
All right. So last question, since this is technically a marketing podcast, why is marketing important?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in my business, it's everything. I'm a real estate agent. If people don't know me, they won't choose to work with me. Marketing is the opportunity to tell your story of the culture of your business and to get that information along with the products and services you offer out to a community you have not met yet, right? Your future business. So for me, marketing's huge because though sometimes those dollars can feel like they have an indirect return on investment, sometimes it's tough to see dollar for dollar exchange. I'll tell you this, those that do marketing well would tell you it's absolutely worth it.
How long have you been doing real estate?
I'm on my 3rd year as a real estate agent, but we've been real estate investors for 7.
All right. So today's topic will be how to build a culture by design. Our advanced septic pump you up quote of the day. So we asked our guests a motivational quote, and let me read it and get your thoughts on it. So from Corinthians, it is not who is qualified, but rather Christ within me that qualifies me. So why did you choose that quote, and why does it resonate with you?
Of course.
Or passage, so.
Yeah, thank you. Everything I get to do in my world is fueled first by my faith. And when you asked what a motivational quote, my mind immediately went blank and then came back to this passage of scripture is what inspires every aspect of my life. It is not that I am qualified. It is nothing about the skills or qualities I bring to the table, but rather it's Christ within me who qualifies me. It's the fact that God loves me, knows me, and calls me called. And that's how I get to serve and show up for others.
Awesome.
Nice.
All right, so now we come to our Fuse Network's Did You Know segment. So for our Fuse tip of the day, do you know the basics of a secure network? All right. So reliable, secure, wireless, your Wi-Fi. Up-to-date antivirus. Keep your firewall current. Who knows what a firewall is? Using password management, multi-factor or two-factor authentication. If these are foreign terms to you and you have a business that uses computers, please contact Fuse Networks for a free consultation evaluation. They'll do it for free. Today's topic is culture by design. So we're going to get a couple things. But first of all, can you tell us what is culture by design? Because when you mentioned the topic, I was perplexed but intrigued at the same time. I think our viewers and listeners will be the same thing too. What is it, please?
Yeah, culture by design. Actually, you recently had a guest that spoke a little bit about culture, Tara, your most recent guest. And culture in and of itself is the set of systems, values, and language used to unite a general people, usually your employees, to move forward the mission of a company. Right? So culture by design is when all of those things are designed, when the values are designed, when the language is designed, and of course the systems are designed. Probably the easiest way to explain it is rather to explain the opposite. A culture by default. A culture by default, when there is no design, is the room becomes the best part of everybody in the room and also the worst part. A short example. Say you own a company and every single morning the crew comes into the office and they all stop by the coffee pot to fill up their coffee cups, spend the first 5 minutes of the day connecting with one another, asking about each other's kids, families, how's married life, what about your trip to Disneyland coming up, right? And this is, as the owner of the company, you see this as a space where people connect, they get to know one another. This is going to help them make tough decisions in business. I love this. Except on Thursdays when Linda from HR comes to the coffee pot. And Linda always complains and always takes this opportunity of the 5 minutes in the morning to correct Dave from accounting on the fact that he didn't get his payroll done in time, right? On those mornings, it's a withdrawal. So here's this default culture of sometimes it's good because of who shows up, and sometimes it's not so good because of who shows up. And there's a way to design systems around that to take control of that, capture it, and make it better for your business.
So I asked you this offline, but just so our viewers and listeners get an idea, What's an example of a good company that does culture by design?
Yeah, I can think of lots of them, but the example I gave you was a company. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's small. They do chicken really well. Chick-fil A.
Oh, okay.
Chick-fil A as a restaurant, right? Technically, it's a fast food restaurant. So when I think of good culture, we talk about those three things again: values, systems, and language. So Chick-fil-A has a value. One of their core values is we're here to serve. When you actually look at the expansion of that value for Chick-fil-A, they talk about they're here to serve their employees, and they actually call them team members, and their store owners first. And then every other decision after that's made to benefit their customers. So employees and store owners first, and they know that'll trickle down to their customer base. There are systems around that. Every Chick-fil-A, of course, the day you crave it, Sunday after church, is not open. They're closed on Sundays because they have a system. We're here to serve. We're going to serve our employees first. Our employees should get time with family and have that absolutely dedicated. So we're going to close our shops on Sundays. Do you know how much more money they could make if they
Billions.
were open on Sundays?
Yes.
We think that,
Yes.
but how much more money have they made from employee retention and employees that stick around, a customer base that sticks around because they appreciate those values too? And then lastly, their language. There's a reason they call their employees team members, because they want a team culture. They want a collaborate culture. And they call them team members on purpose. And if you've ever been to Chick-fil-A, as soon as they hand you your delicious bag of chicken nuggets and you say thank you, every single employee from the top down is going to say, my pleasure. That language is trained. That wasn't by accident. It's not by accident that a nation's worth of Chick-fil-A employees all say the same thing.
Right.
Somebody trained it, decided it, and now they inspect it over and over and over again to make sure employees still do.
All right.
So this is a good example.
So we'll get into that a little bit later. But for our Did You Know segment, so we'll go over a couple of things I found online about culture and get your feedback. So only 1/3 of U.S. workers receive weekly recognition for their work. So the blurb I'll read is, research shows that employees who don't feel appreciated are twice as likely to quit their job within the next year. American work culture and values rest on appreciation and recognition of achievements. So, and then lastly, employees therefore should give more praise to increase employee retention. So your thought on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I first want to break down the fact that somebody who's an employee of a company and a person who's an executive or running the company are going to have two totally different thought processes.
Right.
For those that are listening that are small business owners, you're going to think differently. You don't, as the business owner, likely get a lot of recognition, but you find your value in the fact that your company is growing, that it's serving the products that you're hopeful for. That's where you find your value. The people that are working for you, where they find their value is, am I appreciated here? Am I known here? Do I know the people around me? And those are the pieces that really all that rolls up to good culture. That if that's the case, if they feel like the work they do matters, if they're paid honorably to do it, and there's a culture worth returning to, that retention is absolutely huge. So I couldn't agree more. If you want a baseline starting spot on, I want my culture to be better in my company next month, start with employee appreciation.
Awesome. This next one, satisfied employees are 12% more productive than the average worker. So unsurprisingly, happy people perform better in the workplace. Productivity and company culture statistics show that these employees work harder, have more creativity, and usually exceed expectations. On the opposite side, disheartened workers are 10% less productive. It is no wonder that the importance of company culture is reflected in not only employee satisfaction, but in profits as well. So disgruntled versus happy employees.
Yes.
You've seen it too as a culture change agent,
Of course,
right?
yeah, huge. And this comes back to even the simple parts of our life. I think all of us in this room, we're married folks, and you may have heard the old saying, happy wife, happy life. There's something about happiness and fulfillment that simply makes us work harder and create the same culture for the people around us. I think of Zappos. It's a shoe retailer, shoe and clothing retailer. The owner of Zappos, the CEO, actually wrote a book on this. It's called Delivering Happiness. Their whole clue in is we want a place of collaboration, and from that, there's huge return. 12%, right?
And I actually visited Zappos in Henderson, Nevada.
Did you? How was your experience?
It was just otherworldly. So they actually found the guy who I talked to and who worked with me messaging like shoe recommendation to meet him. So it was pretty cool because at that time, you know, they had just like the best company loyalty. Their culture was just amazing.
Yeah.
People would just want to just go above and beyond like their
Yeah.
clients, and that's kind of before they bought out by
Yeah.
Amazon and everything. But yeah, so
That's on the list of a different company's culture. No, thank you for sharing your experience,
yeah.
Galen.
So this other one, we'll blitz through these last three pretty quickly, but 82% of surveyed people feel that culture is a competitive advantage. So culture has become an important topic for modern entrepreneurs. Company culture and employee engagement statistics show that culture and success work hand in hand. Executives have realized that positive company culture improves people's productivity, behavior, and engagement. They use this knowledge to shape their company's culture and ensure stellar productivity. So just, again, reinforcing what you had said. This one was kind of shocking, but more the big business for small business will get your thoughts. But only 28% of executives understand their company culture.
Yeah,
So that's pretty glaring. If everyone's not on board, there's a disconnect, right? So-
absolutely. And those two stats work together to be a little surprising. The fact that in the 80 percentile, executives know that culture is a competitive advantage, and yet only 20-something% know what their company's culture is or how it's created. That at the end of the day, culture is not tangible. You can't pick it up. Right? It's also a slow burn. This is a crock pot process. This is not a microwave process.
Right.
This is a lot of little tasks implemented by a lot of joy-filled people over a long amount of time.
Right. Now I'm a crock pot cooker sometime. So it's not just set it and forget it. Like when I leave the house, push start. When I get back, pot roast is ready. But you still have to be engaged in the process. right?
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah. I mean, I guess a really great way to say this and kind of a clue in on, positive culture is that you have to inspect what you expect. Right? Though with a crock pot, you get to set it and forget it. You know, because you've got tools to know that it's going to stay plugged in, it's going to stay on based on history. So
Right.
you can inspect that kind of. But inspect what you expect because people respect what you inspect.
Right.
So in the world of culture, it's important you got to keep a thumb on it. And it's one of those that when it gets loose and you have to reel it back in, this is not a solution for a company. Culture is not a solution. It's more of a tension. It's something that you regularly have to come back to and find solutions for, not a one thing fixes all.
All right. This just segues in perfect. But team leaders have the highest impact on company culture. Statistics on company culture show that managers determine the quality of your company's culture. Team leaders' talent, skill, and knowledge can improve company culture and productivity exponentially. There's a whopping 70% difference in culture quality between companies with lousy and great team leaders. So starts at the top, but then again, speak quickly to the small businesses, just, where they may not have layers, district managers, but it's just the owner and then your crew. Talk to us about that with team leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to honor the fact that not every business owner is going to be great at culture. It's just, it's not why you've showed up. Maybe you're really good at sales. Maybe you're really, really good at systems, but maybe culture is kind of offline for you. You want to make money and you want to hire people that'll help you do that. The important piece here, I would say, would be to find the person in your organization who's just naturally a culture advocate or culture ambassador, as I like to call it. Here's a clue on how to find that person, is you're going to look for the person that knows everybody's birthdays and brings them birthday cards. That's going to be the person that automatically probably has the skills necessary to help you lead the work in culture. So the difference between, larger companies with a leader versus a smaller company is both have the same opportunity to help employ or allow the person who's good at culture to do it. Take it off your plate and delegate it to somebody who's better at it.
All right. So to our audience out there that are listening and viewing, and they love everything you say, right? So the first tip is find that person who's good at recognizing people. How do you get started? So let's say you find that point person. They don't have the culture. They have had the water cooler, and then Nancy Negativo shows up on Thursday and saying like, oh,
Yeah.
it's raining, it sucks, and, there's no positive like, oh, the rain brings the plants could, enjoy it and trees get greener and everything. Where do you start? You have that person. What are some simple things people could get started if they can't find a culture expert or they want to try to do it on their own?
Yeah, I've already said one of them today, which is start with employee recognition.
Okay.
So this is going to be taking things that are already true and putting a system around it. Everybody has a birthday. This is a true fact. Simply put a system around it. If you can't remember it, how about this? When you hire a new employee, have them fill out a little did you know sheet, and suddenly you'll get all their favorite things and their birthday. And on their birthday, bring them one of their favorite things, right? So start with employee recognition. This could be things like anniversaries, or if we've reached certain goals. Take that opportunity to celebrate. That's huge. The second thing I would say is to hone in on a couple of things, 3 things that you could do easily that'll support your company values. So if your company values clear communication, and you don't feel like you have a culture of clear communication, make moments where this is possible. I work for a real estate office, right? I'm a real estate agent. Clear communication is one of our values. It's huge. The way we accomplish that is we meet for 10 minutes, 3 times a week, virtually, where we take a moment to celebrate and then hash out all the business details of what's going on for the week. We value clear communication. We couple it with celebration. Suddenly, it's something that promotes culture.
Awesome.
The next question I want to ask is, companies out there listening, you've seen a lot of them, observed it from a national scale and then locally. What are common things people do wrong where they think like, if 28% of executives or leadership, well, you know, the other stat, 80% know it's important, but 30% roughly, I'm rounding up, think they don't get it. What are common mistakes people do? Because I think with the water cooler incident, the coffee, managers could think like, oh, our company's engaging, but not knowing the narrative. Like their doors are shut, but they see everyone from the glass, like, oh, everyone's happy. But what are some common things you see businesses do wrong?
Absolutely. I think the biggest mistake a small or large company can make is to assume it's happening without your influence. To just simply guess, I bet we have a good culture, people stick around. To put some numbers to that, Chick-fil-A employees stick around for 3.2 years on average, right? Jack in the Box, only 2 years, and they actually pay their employees more, right? So what's the difference between these two things? If you're just assuming it's happening because you pay your employees well, that's not the case.
Right.
So the second thing is don't forget to celebrate when good culture does happen. When you see something that's a positive influence on the culture, like Susie who brings in birthday cards for everybody, give Susie a budget. Give her some cashola to help bring birthday cards in for everybody. When you celebrate Susie and what she's doing, this good culture advocate, then others are going to fall in alignment, and she's blessing them with good culture too. Lastly, don't forget to measure it. We measure what matters. If you think culture matters, you need to have some kind of measurement around it. This could be things like how many people say in their exit interview that the company had a good culture. This could be how many new employees did we hire and we retained longer than 3 months. This could be as simple as how many staff shout-outs did we collect and re-hand out to the staff that were shouted out. So measure it. Find a way to measure the things that matter in your business, and culture is one of them.
So we did talk about this prior to today, was give an example of bad company culture.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm not so great at talking about when people do it poorly. But I think the audience needs to know, like, they do.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I talked about Chick-fil-A, right? This great company culture. An opposite or similar, but still in the same industry, would be maybe a company like McDonald's, right? I can't remember the last time I went to McDonald's and their ice cream machine wasn't broken. And I also can't remember the last time that the employee that was telling me looked okay about telling me. So McDonald's, lesser average employment length than Chick-fil-A, though it pays similar or more in some cases. It's been around longer. At the end of the day, that company's values, I mean, you could watch a movie on it. It's a real estate company that sells burgers, right?
Yeah, right.
So with it, their values are actually around their customer first, not their employee. And if you look at their values are 3 to 4 words long. That's good. That's short, and you can remember it. There's no expansion on it, and there's no way about how the owners of the company influence the employees of the company to then influence the customers of the company. So I would say an indicator of poor culture in a company is when the employees are not top of mind, and it is more about the money or the tool of the employee versus the jewel of the human that's helping to move your business forward.
I mean, you could totally see that going into those 2 separate establishments, or even throw in Jack in the Box under the bus as well. Like, people that work at a Chick-fil-A are happy, and they're happy to work there. It seems like they want to work there. People at maybe some other places, you could tell they're not so happy, and they're only doing it because they need a paycheck.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the key, right? Is culture is what helps move people from a transaction to a transformational experience within a company.
So I have a question. So to our solopreneurs out there, right? So this culture piece where there's not a team around them, it's just one person. What would you say to the solopreneur to get like culture? You know, like it'd be you boosting yourself up. But what are things you could, because there's a lot of them, people
Yeah, of course.
that do side hustles or this is their main thing, that they're their own, they wear all the hats. What would you say to that person to doing a culture by design?
Yeah. Culture doesn't exist in a solo vacuum. So when it's just you and yourself, we're going to use words like mindset or personal satisfaction to represent that. If you want an experience of good culture, you're going to have to connect with other people. So as a solopreneur, my encouragement would be find networking spaces of people who are doing similar lifestyle as you are and help promote a good culture amongst your industry or amongst your own customer base. So this is spaces like creating community, right? A solopreneur, if you've one of those hats you wear is you're probably doing your own social media. Engage with all of your followers in a way that promotes a great culture using hashtags. I even love, your guys' hashtag of Valor Cares, right? That's an opportunity as a small local company to make a global or a larger reach to create a culture that gives back. Right? So small things you can do even as an individual person to create culture that inspires yourself, like connecting with others and networking, and inspires others, like connecting with people in social media.
Because I know one of our influencers, Gail Bailey, like she's a Mary Kay person. She networks, she's a solopreneur, and she networks with other Mary Kay people and goes to the annual convention, and they do similar to what you said. So that practice is definitely in play.
Of course, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, take others with you, right?
All right. We forgot to mention this, but you did. Our hashtag Valor Cares initiative. Thank you, Nichole.
Of course.
Joe, we got teed up by our guest for the
Sweet.
first time. Tell us a little bit about our Valor Cares initiative.
Yeah, so it's just an opportunity for us to give back to businesses who need help with their website. So website's your foundation piece for your online presence. And so we thought, what a better way than to give back, a free website build. So anything other than like e-commerce or maybe a multi-level marketing company qualifies, just send us your information through our website and we pick a couple winners every month.
Awesome. And your website could show the culture you have based on your images, the narrative, your company mission.
Huge.
Saying those things on your online properties and everything.
Yeah. So for you, how can our audience get in touch with you if they want to learn more about maybe bringing you on as a keynote speaker, doing some training, or just
a consultant?
Yeah,
pick
of
your
course.
brain.
Yeah, there's two ways. You can email me at Nichole@thepnwteam.com. But engage with me on Instagram. That's where you're going to get a little glimpse into my world. It's at Nichole Frandanisa, and that's tough to spell, so good luck. And but yeah, that's where you get a little glimpse in how culture, it hits kind of every part of my world. I have one more story. I'm not one to
Go for
hijack
it.
a space, but I want to share a local company. So
it.
local in that they have a warehouse here. So Lulu Lemon, larger company, athletic wear. If you go to Lulu Lemon retail store, you're spending buco bucks for stretchy pants. Okay,
Right.
$120 a pair
you got it.
for women.
The
like 100 for men or
softest
something.
pair,
No,
yeah.
It's still 120 for men.
Yes,
too.
it's true. Okay, so Lululemon has a warehouse in a small town in our community called Sumner, Washington. At this warehouse is where they do all of their distribution for the West Coast. It's wild. So different than the retail. When you walk into the retail store, every employee's fit, tall, like just walked right out of a magazine, but they're so kind, they're so friendly, and they're so helpful. That's their culture at Lululemon. You take it into the warehouse. I walked into that warehouse thinking, this is going to be interesting. What is a warehouse culture like? How do you even make culture in a warehouse? And about 5 years ago, I had the opportunity to speak with the Lululemon warehouse team. Walked in during what they called alignment. Alignment is the time between when the swing shift ends and the day shift comes in. Suddenly you have double the people in the warehouse. They take 10 minutes of paying all of their employees during that time to do alignment. A meeting where they get to celebrate each department, their wins for the day, their successes. They also go through their numbers. So they measure the real stuff, like how many packages did we get out? Each department had its own little team chant. Each department went wild and crazy when they shouted out the numbers of the goals they met. They spent 10 minutes creating a culture and infusing it in something that would probably otherwise be a cold, boring job.
Right.
You can create culture wherever you are. You just simply have to decide. If you can't decide or you don't feel like you have the skills to design it, bring somebody, a pro, an expert, a consult on to help you do it.
And they did that intentionally. Right?
By no means were 40 warehouse workers on accident deciding to rah before they went home to sleep after their 12-hour shift. Yeah.
Right. Oh, awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Of course.
So on behalf of our sponsors, A Advanced Services and Fuse Networks, my name's Galen.
I'm Joe.
Coming from the BD Local Studios in Tacoma, Washington. Thanks, Nichole, for joining
you.
us.
Thank
our
you.
in-person guest. And thanks for watching and listening to this episode of the Ask Valor Masterminds podcast. Thanks, guys.